I'm Kristen, and I'm an addict. Well, I first met Ovis whenever I first got clean, and I was pretty nervous, like I would think most people were in early recovery, and I didn't really know how to break out of my shell, and I had a sponsor that was one of his sponsees, and she would force me to go to the area dance monthly, and Ovis was one of the people that would make sure that I'd participate in dancing, and it's not really my thing, but I was able to learn that I can have fun in recovery even if it's something completely outside of my comfort zone, and that's something that I feel is very important. It definitely helped me a lot in early recovery, and this is someone that I know a lot of people in this room that do know me. They know how much I appreciate good hugs. And this is someone that definitely appreciates a good hug. And that always, I don't know, it warms up my heart. But I'm nervous. I love this man a lot. And, I moved to West Virginia about 1.5 years ago, and I was very nervous. I had about 2 years clean, and I hadn't moved in recovery before out of my area. And this is someone that I know had moved multiple times in recovery, and it gave me hope that I could do that too and still be able to stay clean. And I really appreciate his example, and I'm very excited to share a dear friend of mine with everyone here in West Virginia today. With that, I give you Ovis.
Hey everybody, I'm an addict. My name is Ovis. I know I got that unusual name. I usually have to spell it for people because they'll call me Otis. I got family members that's been calling me Otis all my life. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with y'all. For real, it's, Kristen called me a few months ago. Or actually, she didn't call me. I forgot it was social media now. She sent me a message on Facebook. And saying, you should come speak at the convention. I'm like, well, sure. So I filled out some application. I didn't send in a tape. They may wish I would have by the time I'm done, but I didn't send in a tape. And she must be very persuasive because, here I am. Thank God I'm here. Grateful to be here with y'all tonight. What can I say, man? This badge says Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I matriculated there from Norfolk, Virginia. That's the place where it all went down. Literally went down. And my life went down. And you know how when you speak somewhere, you think about the things you want to say. I have no idea. I just trust God on my understanding, give me opportunity to provide a message of hope that, any addict can stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. I mean, that's been my story in a nutshell. My disease, or my first acquaintance with my disease started many, many years ago before I started using dope. When I got here, I thought my problem is I just didn't get enough dope, man. If I could cop a big enough bundle at one time, my problem would have been solved, man. Anybody else think like that? And, that was a lie. By the way, one of my best friends sitting up here, he joined me. He drove all the way from Clarksville, Tennessee. He said he was going to sit up front to make sure I told the truth. So I don't know if he's going to signal me or something when I start lying, but I don't lie anyway. I might embellish. I might exaggerate a little bit. But anyway, of course, this is all in retrospect. I did not know that. When I got here, I didn't think I was that bad, really. You know what I mean? I remember going to detox, and there was one guy with DTs, and there was one guy should be in a psych unit, and I looked at them two when I compared myself. I said, I knew I wasn't that fucked up. Oh, is it okay to use profanity in this? I'm sorry. Anyway, I don't even know why I asked after the readings just now. Anyway, but I grew up in a single family home. It's like, I remember now, I had issues even as a little kid. I always felt out of place, man. I don't know if you can relate to that or not. I always felt out of place. I was very light complexion, and, kids in the neighborhood would tease me because of that. And then, I grew up during the civil rights movement, so you get all these other kind of messages, and I just never felt comfortable in my own skin when I, growing up. Until I discovered marijuana. And I started smoking weed at about 12 years old. My oldest brothers all sold drugs, and I never could sell drugs, I was my only customer, A monkey selling bananas, you know how it is. But, using at such a young age, man, you never really grow up. You know what I mean? Stuff happens, and normal people, so-called normal people, maybe they learn how to cope with things, or they learn how to do things differently. I just got high and then go do the same stuff the next day. You know what I mean? I just never really matured. I was always considered an underachiever. I used for several years, starting out with the weed, and then I tried a lot of other things. I thought you had to shoot dope to be an addict. So whatever else I did wasn't as bad as doing that. You know what I mean? Because I had a brother who shot heroin when I was a kid, and I used to watch him shoot dope, and that was one of the events in my household. My house, the Brady Bunch, we were like the anti-Brady Bunch, man. We had dope shooting, prostitution, transgenders, transvestite, but that made me a well-rounded human being later on in life. I don't judge anybody for nothing now, man. But back then it wasn't so acceptable as some things are now. And but anyway, I just went off on that journey. I went off on that journey, never really being comfortable in social settings and getting opportunities. I would get opportunities to do things, and I would sabotage them, by just not showing up. I would reject myself before I give you opportunity to do that. A lot of times. So, all the way through my high school years, I was, getting high. Luckily I got through that, and then I went into the Army, and the minute they gave me some freedom, I got into trouble, I remember they gave me an M16 one day, and I said, you might think I'm playing, but I'm going to bust a cap on one of y'all ass today. A few hours later, I was in the psychiatrist's office. And this was clean. I wasn't even high. And a few months later after that, they flew me home. And so that was my military career, lasted about 6 months. Like I said, an underachiever. The first few months of basic training, I was a squad leader. I got promoted. As soon as I got some freedom, I would get drunk. But it wasn't just the using. I was using because I was just so uncomfortable, man. I was never okay with myself. Never. I didn't even know what that was like, And no matter how much I drank, how much I used, or how many women I dated or whatever, there was always an emptiness or void or something that just wasn't quite right with me. And I tried going to church, I tried a lot of different things. But about in the mid-'80s, I discovered a way of using it. I don't want to make it a drug law, but I think it's important for me when I talk, is to talk about that for a minute, is that I discovered what they call free-basing. Now, that's an oxymoron, because ain't a damn thing free about basing. It's anything but free. And it was so crazy, man, that I would actually, my best friend at the time was a guy who was legally blind, and he was trying to sell drugs. I'm not joking. And this was my best friend. I would put shit in my pocket. He's like, what happened to that? I don't know, man. And y'all would have done the same thing, right? That dope fiend behavior, you know. Steal your best friend's last $5 and help him look for it all night. That's me. And but that really helped me spiral down to a bottom, man. It really did. I mean, I don't know how people stay out there for years doing that. I didn't last very long. And one of the things that led me into treatment is one of my best friends got murdered. You know, he got shot like 40 times. And he was not a gangster, you know. He was just a guy who somebody thought snitched on somebody else. And I wasn't a gangster. There was nothing gangster. I don't have a gangster story, man. I didn't sleep on a bridge. You know what I mean? I didn't shoot. I didn't spill more dope than y'all use. I always wonder about people say that shit anyway. I ain't never spilled anything. Matter of fact, I spent quite a bit of time on the floor looking for a hit. I ain't never find one. I smoked soap. I smoked cement. I smoked all kinds of stuff, man. And I would be on the floor for literally 15 or 20 minutes. Never found anything. But what's funny is then I go into rehab, they say get on your knees to pray, and I'm like, why? After all those nights I spent on my knees looking for a hit. I don't want to pray on my knees. So I remember it vividly, man. Back in the 80s, to just say no Nancy Reagan, some of y'all old enough to remember that. But, I mean, I didn't lose a lot of material things, y'all, because I never acquired a whole lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Really, I had a car, that dope fiend car. When you get in a wreck, you get the insurance money, you smoke it up. You know, the dents are still there from 3 years ago. You know, stuff all over the place. And I remember, I don't ever want to forget the feeling of that desperation, you know. Whoever the marketing people are back then for these treatment centers had to be dope fiends, because they know exactly what time to play those commercials. Between 2 o'clock in the morning and 6. When you out of dope and out of money and you can't go to sleep, and you're sitting there. And I remember watching these programs, and This Is Your Brain on drugs, remember that one? And then there was the one where the commercial about the lab rat that kept going to the cocaine instead of the water. And I'm starting to relate to the lab rat now. And then, but the one that got me was the voice of cocaine talking to this lady. Well, here's the funny one though. It was cocaine, a nose, and it was just a nose. Remember that one? And then a car would go by, go up the nose, right? Remember that one? And then there was you remember? And then there was the one with a vacation up the nose. I thought that was actually funny. But the one that really made me feel ashamed of myself was the one with the lady who looked like I felt. I mean, the expressions on her face, she looked defeated. And the voice, you could say the voice of the disease was talking to her saying, would you give up your career for me? And she hesitated and then she said, yes. I said, would you give up your family for me? You know? And she said, yes. Then the voice said, would you give up your life for me? And with tears streaming down her face, she said, yes. Then that number flashed on the screen, 1-800-HELP-A-ADDICT or whatever it was. And I called that number, man. I'm going to get some help. I don't know what time it was. It was sometime in the middle of late morning, you know, because by this point, I had called in to work so many times, I would just pick up the phone and I couldn't think of shit and just hang up. I ain't coming to work today, you know? And I called that number, and this dude named Ray answered the phone. He had the nicest voice. He seemed so, you know, he's just like, hey, Ovis, I'm glad you called. What can we do for you? I'm like, man, I can't stop. I've been trying to stop. We understand, you know. And then he said, well, tell me where you live. And I'm like, wait a minute. What do you want to know that for? You I started getting paranoid. I don't know why. I'm not some, I don't have anything to bust me for. No money, no dope. What are they gonna do? They just be practicing. They kick my door in. So I don't know why I was so paranoid, but I hung up, right? So I called. Well, I just said, you know what? I can do this. I can control this. I'm strong. Nothing can control me. I'm a man. That lasted about to the next payday, And then, I would go to. I had these friends. They could drink a beer and smoke a joint, and they would be good. And I would be like, I cannot do that, man. My brother said, you're just greedy. I'm like, maybe so, man. Yeah, he ended up in rehab after me. So how greedy he was. But, so I hit a real bad bottom. I stole money. I had an aunt who was diabetic, and she never had any kids, and I spent a lot of time with her. She was like a grandmother because she was older than my mother, and this was back during the era before the lottery. My aunt was the lottery. She was the numbers lady. Remember the number people? And she kept a lot of money in her house, and my dope fiend ass found out where she stashed the money. And I would just take hundreds of dollars out of her stash, man. And I would say, I'll put it back payday. That went on for months. I don't even know how much money I stole from her. And really, when you think about it, it's a real cowardice thing to do, because I know what is she going to do about it, you know what I mean? And she found out about it towards the end. And that was another thing that helped me to hit bottom. My friend Chucky, my aunt who confronted me about the money, but I had to go out there one more time, y'all, and I was like, I finally got so desperate, I called that same number back, and believe it or not, that same dude answered the phone. Ray, Ovis, I remember you. What's going on? Oh man, it's worse now, man, it's worse. Oh man, he said, where you live? I said, 1320 West 25th Street. Yeah, I'm not holding back anything. I called my boss. I'm an addict, man. I ain't coming to work today. I checked in. Well, Ray told me you could come on in. I told him where I work. He's like, man, your insurance will pay 100%. We'll even keep your extra couple days. I was like, oh, man. So that Monday, I called my boss. I said, hey, man, I'm not coming to work today. Or the next 30 days, apparently. And he was like, well, why not? I say, I'm an addict, man. You know what? I was not afraid anymore of what they knew. They knew something was wrong with me. I hadn't got a full paycheck in months, you know what I mean? I thought about getting a part-time job to not work the job I was supposed to work. To make up for the money I stayed home not going to work to make. And you know what, man? He said, Ovis, I'm glad you're getting some help. Now I remember talking to friends about that. When you sit around getting high, strategizing about what you're going to do with your life. And they would be like, you don't want to tell your boss about this stuff, man. They'll fire you. But nope, that's not what happened, man. They said, you know what? We got a counselor. He will contact you. I said, that's all right. I already made arrangements. Ray hooked me up. I was checking in the next day. But after I called my boss, I was like, well, I was supposed to check in to rehab that day. But I figured, one more for the road won't hurt. So I waited another day, stayed up at night, getting high, watching The Exorcist. Feeling like The Exorcist, And see, now I was going to rehab for one specific drug. I didn't have a problem with some other things, like alcohol and marijuana. That wasn't a problem. I just need to leave this cocaine alone. That was my thinking. So I had to get some stuff to take to rehab. I needed to buy underwear and some weed to go to rehab. So, in spite of my better judgment, I left most of the weed at my girlfriend's house and took one joint to smoke on the way. And I was riding. It was a beautiful spring day, April the 14th, 1987. And I had that joint in my hand. I was about to light it. And maybe it was my higher power said, you don't need that no more. And I tossed it out the window, and I've been clean ever since, Yeah. Yeah, man, and I like to talk about rehab because it is a part of my story, but they introduced me to you. I had never heard of Narcotics Anonymous until I went to rehab. That's why H&I and public information is so important to let people know there's a way. You know, you don't have to promote it, but people need to know that we exist. Because I didn't know. When they used to have a TV show back home called Alcoholics Anonymous. They used to come on 2 o'clock. Everything came on at 2 o'clock, man. And I couldn't relate to them, you know. I mean, they didn't show any faces. They would just tell their stories. I'm like, I'm not an old alcoholic. But I went to my first NA meeting, and it was crazy, man. I picked up that white key tag, and they were clapping and hugging, and I act like I didn't want to like it, but I liked it, y'all. You know, you know, it's like, man, but I'm not too sure I belong here, you know, and but a couple of weeks of being off the street or whatever, I just had an epiphany. I saw that little 12-year-old boy get high, and what happened to his life after that. How he never really became the man or adult, the person he was capable of being. I cried for the first time in years, man. I was boo-hooing like a baby, I mean sobbing. And my roommate in rehab said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Man, I'm an addict." He was like, "No shit, you've been here 2 weeks, you just figured that out?" So, but really, I don't know if I would have made it if it wasn't for that level of acceptance where you internalize. After that, I had no doubt in my mind ever again that I cannot control anything, mind or mood altering at all, nor have I wanted to. You ever think about, like sometimes my disease, you know, man, wouldn't you like to go back to those days when you could do a little this, a little that? Then reality kicks in and say, those days never existed. There was never a time when I did a little this or a little that. From the first time I got high, that's what I wanted to do. And whatever it take me to get there, I wanted to escape reality. I wanted to get out of myself. I did not like me at all. Now, I didn't know how much self-loathing was taking place until I had been clean for a little while, you know. But after that, I remember sitting in meetings and I got out of rehab and I'm like, I'm going to 90 meetings in 90 days, right? That's the message. I'm going to get a sponsor. And that's what I did, man. I got out. I went to a meeting every day, sometimes 2 or 3 on the weekend. My routine was to go to work. I kept my job, you know. I went to work. I went to the gym, and then I went to a meeting. I did that every day. And, you know, my first sponsor, really, I didn't utilize him much. At that time, to be honest with you, I was an anonymous person. I went to, if it had an anonymous attached to the end of it, I went there. And because there were several different 12-step programs, and I hung out at the place where I went to rehab. And after about 8 or 9 months of doing that, when I made this friend in the program, his name's Kenny D. Kenny had relocated back to Virginia from D.C., and he was always well-dressed, very social. He represented the kind of guy I wanted to be because he'd walk into a room and everybody know Kenny's name when he leave. He was articulate and shared. He was also gay, but he didn't think I knew that, nor did it matter. But he took me to my first NA convention in D.C. And man, just like you guys, go crazy with the readings. That's the first time I was exposed to that. And I was like, this is awesome. And after that, I just said, I'm going to go to NA. And I got his sponsor, George M. from San Diego, California. Where's my man from San Diego? George told me, Ovis was my first sponsor, man. He said, we need to start working the steps, because if you don't work the steps, you might just be a visitor in Narcotics Anonymous. And I was like, okay. And I wanted what he had, man. He had that dynamic personality when he shared. Nobody got up to get coffee or go to the bathroom, and he's always hanging on his every word, and he just seemed to be so okay with himself. And he took me through the steps, man. And I'll tell you, when I worked that first step, I wrote about, at the time I was a smoker, I wrote about how out of control my smoking was. I remember I blew the lighter out in my car, and I pulled over one day to try to find some matches or a lighter. You remember when I told you I was on the floor crawling for a hit? I was crawling on the floor looking for a lighter. I tore the car up, man, trying to find a lighter. And this dude, it's funny how God works, because the person I knew that pulled up to see what was wrong with me was a non-smoker. You know how judgmental they can be. And I was like, man. But I wrote about it. It took me a long time to quit after that, but I looked at the unmanageability and the obsession, to use, like even if you don't want to, you got to go use. And I wrote about all the stuff I did, the unmanageability of my life, towards the end of using. I didn't want to answer the phone. I didn't want to go to, my mailbox was like a jack-in-the-box. I wait so long to open it up. Stuff would just fall out of it, man. Didn't want to call, bill collect. You know what I mean? It's like totally unmanageable. Don't want to deal with anything, man. God. I came here, I was 26 years old, but emotionally I was nowhere near that age, nowhere. And George helped me through the steps, man. And my friend Kenny, man, we had a good time. He really got me out of my shell, like KG was talking about, getting out of your shell and not being so afraid to talk to people. I remember I used to be terrified to speak in a meeting. Anybody like that? Just voice cracking and hands start to sweat. And some people, day one, they start talking, and you can't shut them the hell up, no matter what you do. But I wasn't one of those people, man. It was like, I used to share about being scared to share. And then somebody would say, hey, Ovis, I feel that way. It's so much power and recognition and togetherness when people, you're not alone. That it's so powerful to feel that way. When people can relate to what you're saying and they're not criticizing. I always so afraid of being criticized and judged. But nobody criticized and judged me more than I did myself, really. Really, nobody did. Nobody held me back in life more than I held myself back. What's that cliche? The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures that you seek. That's kind of like the way I look at my life now, man. The solutions to my problems never, ever reside in my comfort zone, man. I always got to step out of it to grow somehow. And that's what ENA taught me, And I went through the steps with George, man, and he started bringing all us guys together with me and Kenny and these guys. We had these men's meetings and these men's talks, and we was, and that fourth step I wrote about was how much I resented my mother for prostituting and stuff when I was a kid. How I didn't like my brother for teasing me when I was growing up. Here I am, 26. I'm still pissed off if something happened 12 years ago. Matter of fact, I still do that. But, I was like, wow, it's things that, to tell you the truth, I always felt ashamed to admit. And I wasn't equipped to come to meetings and just share some of this stuff, man. I just wasn't ready for that. My sponsor allowed me an avenue to do that with him, and I remember sharing about how I was so ashamed and some of the stuff I went through as a kid, and I had a brother who was homosexual and how the kids used to tease me about him, and I was somewhat ashamed of him too. You know who taught me to accept gay men? My gay friends in the program. I was like, wow, I can love these guys. I can love my own brother. And some of you may remember mid to late 80s, early 90s, we lost a lot of people to HIV in Narcotics Anonymous. That friend Kenny, he died of HIV. My brother, HIV. As a matter of fact, when my brother was diagnosed with HIV positive and he told us he only had a short period of time to live, he decided to confront my mother about her lifestyle choices when we were kids. And it's amazing how when you're in recovery, you're kind of in tune. I'm an empathic person. I feel stuff. Sometimes, I was just in tune with what was happening. I knew what he was doing, and I knew she must have been heartbroken, her son to be dying and telling her what a shitty mother she was. He wasn't going to die holding on to that. But he left before he could get the amends. And I walked in and I got the amends. And no, my mother cried on my shoulder, and she said, Ovis, I'm so sorry. You know how we say sorry isn't enough, but sometimes sorry is enough, man. That day was enough for me. And you know what? Here's the fascinating thing to me. Self-centeredness is something else, man. You know that I am always on my mind thing. And my mother, in that moment, she wasn't just my mother. You know what I'm saying? She was a woman who went through her own shit, who had to raise 6 kids by herself. We didn't get welfare. She did a lot of stuff that she probably wasn't proud of to put food on the table. And this is not a codependent statement. This is reality of life, you know? And when she said she was sorry, I realized my mother didn't do anything to try to hurt me. You know, she did what she had to do to survive and to help her kids survive. And I forgave her instantly, man. She just died in January. But she got to see me stay clean for 29 years. Yep. She sure did. And my brother, who died in 1992, HIV positive. Back then, it was a death sentence back then, unless you were rich. Yes. And I was there. You know, I had a chance to tell him how I loved him and accepted him, and he was like, so proud of you and what you're doing. And when he died, you know, he was in New York. My mother, my brother, all my siblings, his partner, were all with him, and I was holding his hand, man, when he took his last breath. And I'm going to tell you something, I'm so grateful that Narcotics Anonymous gave me a life and ability to be present in the life of the people that I love. Because I didn't have that ability before. I would always make plans to do something and not show up. You know what I mean? Just say the hell with it. You know, this journey has taken me a lot of places spiritually, you know. I'm not a religious person. I tried religion for a while when I got here, and I just didn't stay. I pursued other things, you know. But I found what's so beautiful about NA is that's okay. That's one of the it's amazing what we do in NA to me, the diversity of NA. Do you know that Narcotics Anonymous is really growing in the Middle East, man? In the Middle East, you know? When I got clean, I think all the stories in the basic text were limited to this continent, but not anymore. They got stories from all over. We got a World Service office in Brussels now, and you know what I mean? It's like the fellowship is growing, man. But I remember those days when it was small. You could talk for 20 minutes, nobody cared. Now they got a timer on you, clean. A lot of the stuff I'm sharing about, you know, and what I love about the third step is that to me it's constantly evolving. I'm constantly looking to be even better, you know, than what I have been. I mean, my life is incredibly full, man. I spent the last week, I was in Miami a week ago and down in Tennessee on the way up here, and here I am tonight. You know, I do things I could only imagine before. That's what the program has given me. You know what I mean? I used to dream about having, you know, graduating from college. Check, did that. And let me tell you, I'm not the most studious person in the world. I think I got ADD, untreated, because my mind goes off in a minute. So that took a lot of effort for me. You know, I always wanted a office job. Check, I got that. I always wanted a expense account and travel the world, and all that stuff has happened, man, for me. And I have friends who have lived their dreams in here too. I have a lot of friends. I have friends who dropped out of high school who are now got so many letters behind their name, it's ridiculous, you know. I mean, it's like there's nothing that you can't do in here. You know, that's what I found in NA, that it's limitless. But I have not been able to do anything alone, man. Whatever success I have in my life, I attribute to Narcotics Anonymous, you know. And it's opened the door for me to do and be the kind of person I only used to think about. You know, and lately, you know, it's been a last rough couple of years. I've had a lot of changes in my employment. I work at the same place, but in personnel, and I've been forced to look at myself, and, you know, that has never changed. Once I did that first inventory, don't mean I stopped and I'm done. I've had to continue to take an inventory, and when I was wrong, promptly admitted it. And I've had a lot of problems with my supervisor lately, and it finally occurred to me, maybe it's me. Maybe it's not all him. Maybe I need to change. Most likely, no matter what happens, there's some adjusting and adapting and changing that needs to happen inside of me, like have to face things, Everything I face probably won't change, but in order for anything to change, I have to face it first. And I have to face a lot of things in here, mainly my own self-defeating, negative, diseased thinking to tell you you're not capable, or you're not lovable, you can't do this, who do you think you are? That voice over the years has gotten less and less, and the more I accomplish with the help of my friends in here, I finally am comfortable in my own skin some days. I'm comfortable right now. My friend here gave me acupuncture before I came in. I almost slept through the meeting, man. By the way, this is my best friend, Glenn. He's celebrating 31 years tomorrow. Let me warn you about Glenn, though. He doesn't play that halfway hug stuff, man. No leaning in on the side and all that. It's like full frontal embrace. So if you go to hug him, that's what you're going to get. So if you got body issues, just stay the hell away from him. Anyway, it's been a wonderful journey, man. I would like to go through all the steps. I've had to make an amends. I made an amends to that aunt that I stole all the money from, and I just didn't tell her I was sorry. I paid the money back to her as much as I could before she died, And she didn't even care about that. She was just grateful I was okay, I still try to, to be a positive force in this world. Sometimes I have to ask myself, what am I doing to make the world a better place? Because I can sit back and complain. There's a lot to complain about. But am I contributing to craziness, or am I making the world a little bit better, And that's what my goal is, to keep doing that and to stay clean. We lost a lot of people up in Harrisburg this year. I know 6 people overdosed and died this year, 1 this week that we know very well, in and out of the program, in and out of the rooms. I'm so grateful that I stay here. I've been here a long time, and I don't plan on going anywhere. It would be crazy. My life has gotten so much better, and the lives of my friends have gotten so much better. Is it challenging? That's what life is, Life is, to me, is a contrast. That's what teaches me what I don't want, so that I can focus on what I do. And I'm striving for more peace and unity, and, my life is good, man. I need to remember that. And I just, I'm really thankful to be here, anywhere, clean today. Namaste.
I will speak for all of us. We'd like to thank Ovis for sharing. Okay, the subcommittee is asking us to try to do something.